Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement, presented by Chris McIntire, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to your money, your investments, your financial and retirement future. He is Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Chris, always a pleasure having you here on the program. Never any lack of topics or discussion or concern in the financial world. And I think that today we are going to talk about bringing it back to basics. When we talk about having the plan here on the program, talk about what we can do despite all of these factors that we deal with to have a reasonable financial confidence. You always bring it back to you must have a plan in place. You got to have a plan. And today, going to discuss what that plan consists of, what needs to be addressed in the plan. So again, always a pleasure to have you here on the program. Looking forward to today's discussion, Chris.
Hey, my pleasure to be here, Peter. And, you did that intro and, it reminds me of the Top Gun movie. When it comes to retirement planning, hey, it's a target-rich environment. There are many things that we have to work on. And there are several key big issues, or we'll call them core issues, for those of you that are out there that want to, you start doing some, physical training and whatnot. They say, look, you got to work on your core. You got to get your back strong, your belly strong, and, and that type of thing. So that's what we're going to discuss here today. And Peter, I'll let you kick us off, buddy.
Well, Chris, one of the things that has sort of been set on autopilot is the investment options inside of our 401ks. You spoke of the targets in retirement, and it made me think of these target date funds. But really, planning is always an ongoing process, and we never should sit things in autopilot and then just forget about them and forget to do the routine maintenance. So even if we have this plan together, we should still continue to check up on it, update it, and review it on a regular basis.
Yeah, no question about it. You reference those target date mutual funds that we've spoken of many times. And, those are, kind of the I don't want to call it the turnkey option or the set it and forget it option, but inside a 401k, those plans, get more conservative as you get closer to that target date. And many investors don't realize, that, hey, they may have a lot more in stocks than they anticipated. They think that, all right, if I'm going to buy a 2025 target date fund, that by the time I get to 2025, everything's going to be all set and I don't have to do anything. I can't lose any money. And we all know that's not the case because they are still invested in stocks and bonds and different things in the economic landscape that we deal with, affect the pricing of stocks and bonds.
And Chris, they are an investment option, not a plan. So today, talking about bringing the plan together and how to address the core issues that every plan must address, how to make sure that we are factoring in the investments, the income, the taxes, the healthcare, the legacy, and the perspective and goals that we have in mind. So we'll talk about this, ladies and gentlemen. And if you'd like a reminder of these 6 core topics, as well as the subcategories and discussions that you should have about each one as you are putting your plan together, pick up the phone, give a call to McIntire Retirement Services, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris has a handy report, a list of these 6 core issues that every plan must address. And of course, if you'd like to get your plan put together or review and update the current plan, Chris does offer that with no cost, no obligation to listeners to the program, viewers to the podcast. Again, just call that number 800-868-1194, or you can visit online, McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com. Chris, number one, when putting together the plan, you really need to have a goal in mind. We are talking about the perspective that we have and the goals that we have, and basically outlining what each one of the following categories is going to be all about, correct?
You're absolutely right. And, I think we'll kick off here with number one is, who is my advisor, for example? What is their philosophy? What are the experiences that they've had that have shaped that philosophy? And, sometimes, when I fly on an airplane, I look up into that, into the cabin there, and I don't want to see somebody with pink hair and, bunch of tattoos and sleeves rolled up, that type of thing. I want to see an experienced, gray-haired, type of an individual there, somebody that's been through the ringer and a couple of things. And I say that because my wife and I, last time we flew down to Florida, we had to do what's called a touch and go. And, crosswinds came in and the pilot touched the plane down and off again we went. And, you think about the experiences that led to that. It was just probably natural muscle reaction for them to do. Instead of somebody who just came out of broker school, for example, or been working on a headset, and works off a teleprompter, for an example.
Yeah, many different types of advisors, different experience levels, Chris. And I think that there is some benefit from having had a few experiences and been through it a time or two. And that, I think, will add to the conversation and the depth of conversation when we are planning to do something we ourselves have never done before, retiring. Having an advisor who has helped somebody make that transition and done so successfully, and seen what has led to success and maybe what has caused others to not have the same level of success, is going to be beneficial for our planning outcome.
Sure. We adhere to that fiduciary responsibility where we have to act in our client's best interest. And, believe it or not, that's not always the case with all different types of, brokers or representatives versus investment advisors, which would be, the path that we choose down, that fiduciary standard, as we think it should be, Peter.
Another very important distinction here, Chris, as we were talking about this number one core issue that every plan must address: the goals, the guidance, the perspective, the source of information from an advisor. That fiduciary distinction is something that people, I think, are starting to know that word and what it means a little bit more. But Chris, does always deserve to be asked and addressed when forming that relationship with an advisor.
Yeah, no question about it. How do you get compensated? Any sort of conflicts of interest here? And, you certainly would expect to get full disclosure on all of that. And that's not always the case. And, I always liken it and tell folks that sit across the conference room table from me, Peter, is, look, if you were going to come over to my house and build me a garage, I'm going to know what it costs for you to build that garage before I let you build it and send me a bill. So, you're building your retirement plan should, we use that same philosophy. Look, here's how we get compensated if we do this. Here's how we get compensated if we do that. Here's how we get compensated if we do a combination of this and that,
And a blueprint may be helpful, right, Chris? And that's what the rest of these core issues are going to be all about, forming that blueprint for your planning, for your financial progress and future, ladies and gentlemen. These are the core issues that, after you've defined your goals, after you have found a reasonable source for guidance and information, of experienced, qualified professional with that perspective, with that experience, so important, then what should the plan address? And Chris, we do need to focus first and foremost on the goals, but then there are several categories here that really every plan should address. And number one, for retirement, it's not that we don't need an income, it's that we don't have an income, and income is really going to be the basis for our quality of life in retirement.
Yeah. And the biggest concern that most people have that are listening to the show today is, will they run out of money in their retirement? And probably even more importantly, will they run out of income? Because running out of money is one thing, running out of income is something else. Your 401k may get depleted, but if you've got a nice pension, nice Social Security benefit, at least you have that income that's coming in. So covering those basic expenses, and part of that can be through maximizing your Social Security benefit, taking it later versus earlier, there are a lot of different types of risks that we'll have to mitigate to create that income plan. You and I were talking a little bit earlier, even before we turned the microphones on the successes and things like that we've had recently with our specific clients on, using some fixed income pieces that are unique to us at Brookstone. We've got, sequence of returns risk like we had in 2022, Peter, which would mean, the market went down pretty significantly. So if you had just retired, now you got the emotional element of a significant loss in your portfolio. It's not like, hey, you retired and the market was doing okay, and then it took a hiccup. It took, you had a hiccup in year number one. That's a different emotion, no question about it. We call that sequence risk. Now we're dealing with inflation as they have raised interest rates 10 times in a row, if you will, kind of a historic rise in interest rates, and it's starting to bring down inflation. So, hopefully the Federal Reserve can navigate that where they don't throw the market into upheaval and, the debt ceiling talk. So, mitigating this kind of volatile world that we live in and, and using different financial instruments to help us do that is the key to, like Peter says, is using this blueprint, and this is how we build it. And, you might hear your roadmap to success, many different things, but sometimes you got to have a couple of different paths to get there. Google Maps will tell you, hey, there's an accident up here. You need to jump off the interstate and go around it, and that's call that a plan B. And you have to have some of those things for your retirement plan as well, because, life is what happens to plans.
Yeah, you mentioned several things there, Chris, but I think it boils down to ongoing management of the plan. The plan needs to be formulated. We need to think through several critical decisions. You mentioned Social Security. Chris, one simple decision can mean the swing in potentially several hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of retirement. From that one part of this core issue, income alone. That's one of the subcategories, is have you taken the time to optimize your Social Security? But this is part of the income portion of the plan. And beyond Social Security, with the rest of the portfolio, there are many, many different tools and options that can be geared to generate income. But the amount of that income, the dependability and the durability of that income can vary widely. So we need to understand each one of those tools. That's where the assistance of a qualified, experienced professional comes in.
Yep, absolutely, Peter. And, some of the unique software pieces that are, a lot of times only available to somebody that has some licensing, to be able to provide the advice. And, certainly there's a lot of clickbait out there, but that doesn't mean that's that might be a misinformation click versus an information click, if you will, in today's world.
So much of that out there.
Yeah, our artificial intelligence, I guess.
Chris, I do want to get off topic of these 6 core issues, if you don't mind. You did mention this debt ceiling debate that we are having and the deadline for that. What do you make of this? Is this a time where investors need to be cautious and maybe expect some further volatility as a result of this? I know we've had these debates before, but this one, I don't know, it just feels a little different this time.
Yeah. And, and from a personal perspective here, I think we're all just frustrated with the lack of the government agencies, government in general to get anything, substantive done on debt, Social Security, Medicare, things like that. We just get frustrated regardless of the party. So yeah, it's certainly going to add some volatility. The sooner they would get something done, the less volatility it would have, because you're talking about the largest economy in the world not being able to meet its obligations. That is not good, and I'll say there's 32 trillion reasons to not reelect a lot of those folks.
Yeah, indeed. Well, again, we are talking with Chris McIntire about the core issues that every plan must address. Number one on this list is a goal-oriented plan. You need to understand the perspective of the advisor and the advice that you are receiving, and is it geared toward your specific defined goals? Number two, income. Income, the most important factor during your working career. You've got an income plan. It is show up to work. It is put in the time, earn the paycheck, and that is what supports your lifestyle. It's also what supports number three rather on this list, Chris. Investments, obviously a big part of the financial plan, the financial picture. And after we have a goal-oriented plan, after we look at the income and make sure that we've got a plan for how to generate a dependable income in retirement, now we look at the investment picture. And I know you go in depth here, and this is where you spend a lot of your time helping your clients to formulate investment plans, manage investment plans on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. And look at, try to find where the opportunities are. And, look, there are times when markets disappoint investors, you and I included in that, Peter. 2022 is a good example of that. Stocks down significantly, bonds down significantly. And typically then that's going to reverse its cycle. The pendulum's only going to be negative for so long and it comes over positive. A good example would be the technology sector really took a hit when they raised interest rates, and it's been one of the best performing sectors of 2023 as an example. Dividend paying stocks held up very well in 2022, and they've given back a little bit of that gains here early into 2023. So it is the ebb and flow of the market cycle here, and trying to condition clients and investors that look, Warren Buffett doesn't move to cash because the market had a bad day. He picks high quality dividend paying stocks and well-run companies. And you have to have this longer term perspective if you're going to be in that game. It's too difficult to day trade in and out of that. That's really not a good philosophy. And build that strategy around your long-term risk tolerance. And certainly you want to adjust that. We've been making a lot of adjustments. Interest rates are a lot higher. Heck, we've been buying CDs for clients that, we've not done in 20 years, for example. I can buy 5% CDs, FDIC insured for a client and, and put that in the mix of the portfolio, pay that interest out to them on a monthly basis. So, just an example of how you adjust to the economic climate.
Yeah. And Chris, a far cry from the interest rates that were available 18 to 24 months ago. And we have more safety factors. Even the portion of the portfolio that was geared to be more conservative, bonds and bond funds, over the course of the last 18 months took a pretty significant hit, but interest rates have climbed. By the way, those two are well connected, but we have a better interest rate environment now, Chris, and that is helping to reduce risk to the portfolio and in general increase income or yield, correct?
Yeah, that's a great analogy right there. As interest rates have gone up, solving that income puzzle is getting easier because we have more solutions for that in lieu of higher interest rate paying bonds and certificates of deposit, the multi-year guarantee annuities and that type of thing that are yielding significantly more than, like Peter said, 12 months ago, for example. I've got it up on the board here. In March of 2022, a 10-year government bond was yielding about 1.7%. Okay? Today, it's about 4%. So, that's a huge increase in work you get for your money, I guess is a good way to put that. You take $500,000 and put it in a 5%, fixed annuity. That's $25,000 a year that you can kick out in interest without risk to principal, or even into a CD, I guess, too, to be fair.
Not only not risk, but not dipping into principal, Chris. That protect the principal, live off the interest approach really has not been something available to investors by and large over the course of the last decade or more because of the low interest rates, and people were pushed therefore to take more and more risk with their money. And now we are sort of seeing that pendulum swing the other way. How long that will last, we do not know, but it is a good time to be looking for that income component of the plan and to look at the risk tolerance, the risk exposure, and the risk capacity of your portfolio, ladies and gentlemen. See if there are ways that you can decrease risk, decrease fees, increase stability, increase yield. Give a call to Chris McIntire. This is what he does with his clients each and every day. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, you also had mentioned sequence risk. And I do want to talk about that for a moment. You mentioned how tough it was if we retired into a down market. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they may have retired ahead of schedule with everything that went on with COVID, whether it was by their own choice or not. A lot of people went home and then realized that they liked the quality time with family and may have retired. A lot of people got word from their company that they didn't need them to come back. And then we see this environment with high inflation and market volatility kind of hitting us at a double whammy. That really does make it very difficult to continue on with our trajectory for our retirement when we see a down market early on. Are these better interest rates something favorable for somebody to consider if they are newly retired or maybe considering retirement in the near future?
Yeah, that could be a very key component to their retirement plan. And, like you say, if bonds fell 15% or so in 2022, that asset class wasn't very favorable. It may be the one that's very favorable going forward into 2023 because they're talking about lowering interest rates. Okay, that would push those bond prices back up, plus the interest that's being paid on that as well to, try to give you a 360-degree version of that answer, Peter. Dividend paying stocks also can do something that's very, are also very favorable. And I think the bond section here, the bond piece of a portfolio is going to be a very key component from now going forward into 2024, where they may end up lowering interest rates as inflation seems to be ebbing ever so slightly.
It's kind of funny when we talk about what they are doing with their policies and with the market and with the economy, Chris. It's kind of like this never-ending cycle. They printed all this money, then inflation hit, and then they had to raise interest rates to try to retract the market. And of course, now there's talk of the fear of recession, and their weapon against recession every time is to lower interest rates, right? It all seems kind of self-induced and very opposed to Thomas Smith and the laissez-faire, hands-off system of capitalism, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And sometimes they're in the law of unintended consequences. Said, hey, we're going to spend massive amounts of monies to make sure we get reelected, and then they get elected or reelected, whatever it is. And then, now we get dealt with this inflation. So now they got to raise the interest rates, which affects the people on the bottom side of the economic ladder that they tried to give the handouts to anyway. And I know
Adam
it just
Smith
frustrates me. I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Those are the 9 words you need to fear the most, right? According to Ronald Reagan.
Well, and then we arrive at our next core issue, Chris, which again, these things all need to be factored in to a solid plan. If you want to have lasting financial and lifestyle confidence into and throughout retirement, ladies and gentlemen, these are the 6 core issues that every plan must address that we are talking about with Chris McIntire today. The next one is taxes. But before we get to what you need to be doing and thinking about proactively right now to control, manage, and minimize taxes, do want to remind you that if you like this list, which talks about these core issues and then several subcategories under each one, or if you'd like to get your plan together that addresses all of these core issues, pick up the phone and give McIntire Retirement Services and Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And Chris, I know as I am talking to people, as they are bringing up financial discussions and concerns with me to the person, not a single one has negated to mention the fact that they are worried about not only taxes and paying taxes, but the fact that taxes are likely to go up into the future.
Yeah, no question about it. And, and also the currency risk. If the dollar isn't the dominant currency, that's a pretty common theme that we've been hearing from our clients. And, depends what news programming you're watching. Sometimes you get more persuasion, so to speak, right? Probably more editorialized than ever before. That's probably a fair statement. But like Peter said, trying to understand how these issues impact where you're at, how you feel. I've got clients that are very young and very conservative. I've got clients that are a little bit older and very aggressive, and they believe in the long-term performance of the marketplace. And, do you look on the international side of things? If domestically here in the U.S. things aren't looking as good, do you look at a Japan or, the European side of things, Australia? So a lot of different areas you can certainly invest your dollars into, look for that economics. And, again, typically broad-based diversified portfolio, like right now, commercial real estate is down for this year. Okay. That's been a bright shining star for 2021, 2022. And now it's getting hit by the interest rate side where, the bond market is starting to come back from some of those interest rate increases. The banking sector, certain stocks have rebounded significantly. So, you have to be able to ebb and flow, and things are going to disappoint you, as you work your way through retirement. And that's why you have your safe money strategy. We really haven't spoken about having a true safe money strategy that if, your investment portfolio isn't working out well, from stocks to bonds to real estate, that, hey, we put this other alternative into play, and there's many different ways you can look at doing that we're going to switch over here for maybe a year or two, and we'll give our growth money some time to recover. Or you take Social Security to give your portfolio a relief as well. You might thought you were going to delay Social Security until much later in retirement, but if your portfolio suffered, maybe you go and take Social Security and you take some of that withdrawal rate risk off the nest egg, if that makes sense.
And try to, Chris, where possible, control those taxes, as well as plan for healthcare expenses and legacy, rounding out the rest of the list here. All of these items must be addressed in a comprehensive, cohesive plan. Chris, I'll give you the final word, just a few minutes on those last three items and how important each one of them is.
Sure. Yep. And again, the taxes, we all think taxes could certainly go up, and that will have an impact on how much money you get to keep, okay, out of what you take out of the IRA. The healthcare side of things, we have to pay a very close attention to, because, we got Medicare premiums, we have Medicare supplement policies you have to pay for, your prescription drug benefit, all those out-of-pocket expenses, or the deductibles could certainly increase drastically. And probably even more importantly is, if you went into an assisted living facility or a full-blown nursing home care unit, for, some sort of health disorder that you have, I got aging parents, and, we're dealing with some of those things right now. That can be upwards of $10,000 a month, depending on the level of care that you need and whose money are you going to use for that. Okay. Finally, Peter talks about the legacy side of things here. And, how good of an estate plan do you have? Are your beneficiaries in the right place at the right time on your beneficiary documents? Or if you've got a trust, do you have your trust set up the correct way where, something was to happen unexpected, that, the people you've chosen to get the money, are they going to get it in the right way? So, you certainly want to review those things, just like your property insurance and that type of thing, and car insurance. Do you have the right pieces in place?
Well, all important. And maybe that last one, Chris, I've heard the comment a time or two that I'm not really concerned about leaving a great deal of wealth behind, but we want to be as financially stable and confident in our own lives as possible. And the reality is, if you have a plan, ladies and gentlemen, a plan that addresses these core issues, then you have probably dramatically increase the likelihood that a positive financial legacy will be left behind. And you want to do that in the most efficient manner as well. Not only not to leave the IRS as your biggest beneficiary, but not to leave a headache on your loved ones and family. So let's get that plan put together, ladies and gentlemen. Address the goals of the plan, the perspective of the advice and the advisor that you are dealing with, very important, the income, the investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy, the 6 core issues. If you'd like this list to remind you of what those are, as well as all of the subcategories and discussions that should be had about each one, or if you would like to get your game plan for retirement put together with the help of an experienced, qualified fiduciary advisor, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, it is always a pleasure having you here on the program, and we appreciate the reminder of what we need to do and what's important in that planning process.
Hey, Peter, my pleasure to be with everybody today. Thank you for listening, and have a great weekend.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.